Hello, friends, and welcome to Service of Change's Changecast, your podcast for change. I'm your host, Dennis Nappy II, with Service of Change, where small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. Tonight, we'll be speaking with our good friend Kevin Carter, talking about growing up through detention centers and in the struggle, and how he turned his life around to help students today. But before we get into that story, I'd like to bring on and introduce my esteemed co-host and partner in crime, Joel the Provocateur Schaefer. Joel, what's going on tonight, dude?
No crime.
No crimes at this point, anyway.
No crimes yet. Maybe
Nothing.
crimes against Big Brother.
Yeah. According to last night when they shut us down, we pre-recorded our Thanksgiving show last evening, and just because we want to stay consistent with having a show every week, so that'll be out probably next Tuesday night or Wednesday morning for people to listen to in all of our mediums. And it was a good show, don't you think, Joel?
Yeah, it was just we were joking half seriously about we had the technical difficulties, and we were like shouting out like just to foreshadow the upcoming show. We were shouting out some of the companies and businesses that are going to be open for Black Thursday. And so we thought maybe Google was like, you can't be bashing these corporations, so they shut it down.
Shut us down. Dude, it was a disaster last night. In the middle of the broadcast, I spilled water all over everything, all over myself. It was horrible. But we trudged on and we made it through and had a pretty good show. So
yeah, we
check
had
us
good
out
we
next
had
week.
we had good content. I think we had a good conversation.
Yeah, we definitely did. So check us out next week. And there's a variety of ways that you can get our show. First of all, you can go to www.serviceofchange.com, and at the top there is a Service of Change app. Just click that banner on your mobile device, and once it opens up, just save that to your home screen. You've got the app right there, and once you're in there, you can read our articles, any upcoming events. We have what's called Chat Change. You can reach out and connect with Joel and I. And we also get our Changecasts uploaded right there. So you can just open it up. It's got a log of all of our Changecasts, and you can listen, on the go. We're also on iTunes, Service of Change. Just go to iTunes, type in Service of Change. You can listen or download right from our website at serviceofchange.com. And you can also stream it via RSS if you have an Android and have the podcast reader app. So a lot of ways to connect with us and to get our show. Those were, I guess, my standard plugs. Am I missing anything, Joel?
No, but I just on the spur of the moment just was thinking about like what we're doing here and like the variety of guests we get, and like I don't know necessarily what it's like to like just listen because I'm part of it, but like we got so many different types of people with so many different skill sets coming from so many different physical places and so many different mental places that like if you're listening, please continue listening because there's so many good things going on out there and so many good people, and even if you don't have time to get involved and help people, but just listen and learn and support what we're doing here. So
Great points there, Joel. And we've had a lot of interesting guests on our show, from combat veterans to mental health professionals to teachers. I mean, just a wide array of people, and everybody.
Exterminator, a green exterminator,
Right.
environmental activist. I mean.
Yep. Yeah, so and our goal is to give our listeners something they can take away, because our theme, our motto is small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world, whether that's your own personal world or the world around you. If it's that little thing, that recommendation on maybe how to start an exercise program to get you back on track, or starting some big movement like we're talking about yesterday in our show next week on how to prevent these stores from staying open during the holidays. So it's a great program to be a part of, and I see. We just went from 1 viewer to 3 viewers back down to 1 viewer, but I was excited, and I am excited that we have at least somebody watching our show. I hope the other 2 that just jumped out come back and visit us real soon. So
They're waiting for Kevin, so let's bring him on.
yeah, let's get the Kevin.
But in here, Kevin, and so they're like, Kevin's not on, so we're getting on.
We don't want to hear these 2 guys go on about themselves. You know what? I'm looking for one thing as I'm going through this. Hang on one second. As I try to figure out, again, what I'm doing. All right, I'm just going to move on. The show must go on, as the saying goes. So let me get to Kevin. Let me bring up his screen here. Forgive us, we're still learning. We just moved to the Google Hangout, session. We used to do this on Skype. So Kevin, I'm gonna read his bio, and then I'm gonna bring him onto the show. So and a little background about Kevin real quick before I jump into his bio. Kevin and I work together, and we work at a learning center where we work for a cyber school, but we work at the Learning Center where students come every single day and get extra help and support from us. And on my first day there, when I met him, just from my experience as a teacher going through the challenging students I've always worked with, in just seeing Kevin's demeanor and the way he just rolled with a challenging student, I just knew that he was something special. You don't have a lot of professionals that work with some of the caliber of students that Kevin and I have worked with that can do it with a smile on their face, not get offended, and genuinely love the kids. I mean, Kevin's like me. I think he gravitates towards that difficult student that most teachers want to throw out of the classroom. We see that kid and we're like, I can connect with that kid. I understand that kid, and that's what I love so much about him. So let me read his bio, and then I want to bring him on the show because I'm really excited to talk with him tonight. So Kevin Bryant Carter is 26 years old from York, Pennsylvania, but he was raised in juvenile detention centers. In 2003, he moved to the Lehigh Valley and began his freshman year at, I'm going to butcher this, I should have asked him how to say this earlier, Kadasqua High School, his first experience in public schools. Before coming to the Lehigh Valley, he endured a troubled childhood. He was kicked out of the York City School District. His life was a terrible experience, but, according to Kevin, made him who he is today. His past made him realize that if it wasn't for the pain, the not knowing where he was going to be on certain nights, and what kind of family he would be staying with over the holidays, he wouldn't be who he is today. His hardships made him who he is as a man, a black man, and changed how people look at him. An employee at one of the detention centers once gave Kevin some advice that still rings true to him today. No one owes you anything. If you want something, you have to earn it. Nothing is given to you. The road ahead will get worse, but it's on you to make a change and change the outcome. That is excellent advice, and I'm looking at our control room right now, and I see that we have lost Kevin. So, give me a second. He's calling me right now. Let's bring him back on. Nope, wait, hold on a second.
Should I do Jeopardy theme music?
I'm going to, you know what? Let me X out of here. Hang on one second. My apologies. While I'm getting Kevin back on the line, again, I just want to thank our one listener tonight for tuning in for the live show. And remember that it's we're new at this with this forum, so we experience technical difficulties from time to time.
We're just human. We make mistakes.
Yeah, we sure do, but we're going to be professionals and plow through it. So,
yeah, exactly.
On a side note, I heard that people up in Buffalo are getting more of that crazy snow. Is that correct?
I heard 2 more feet.
Oh my gosh! Did you see how the windows were being blown in? And that's just absolutely insane.
It is, and then people were like venturing out into the streets, even though it's supposed to be a state of emergency. But you wonder if some people might have to go out and to get things, or I know I have to work whether it's a state of emergency or not. So
you're absolutely right.
So it's tough, but I think Cuomo, the governor, was saying that they've never seen anything like this before.
Wow. Yeah, because it came off the lake. All right, I think we have him back. Kevin, you with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, Joel and I just had to do some last-minute freestyling. I hope we did okay, and we still have our one viewer paying attention, so we're good to go. We went through your intro, and then I look at the screen and I noticed that you were gone. So I'm glad you're back with us. It's a good challenge for Joel and I as professionals to keep the show going. So how you doing tonight, dude? It's good to have you on.
I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Outstanding. Definitely excited to have this conversation. Did you get to hear any of our intro? I'm not sure at what point we lost you.
Right when you were getting into it, it cut me out.
Okay. All right. It's all good. I was, what I was saying was how, when I first met you, I just saw how you were able to connect with those kids right away, and I don't know if you have the same experience when you see somebody who's on, I guess, the same level, has the same approach with students as you do. You just recognize it right away. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I definitely do. See, it comes from more of my background. I know where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't look down upon them. I treat them as they're exactly the same because I was in their shoes and I did worse things at times.
Right.
I was their age. So
why don't you walk us through? Because you and I have spoken a little bit, on the job about what it was like growing up, and it's definitely an incredible story. So why don't you walk us through from the beginning, how you ended up in juvenile detention centers and what home life was like and stuff. Why don't you tell your story?
All right. Well, from York, Pennsylvania, born and raised. My life was it was a tough road. I had three other brothers that lived with me, and a couple other brothers and sisters that did not live with me. Um, Me and my mother, we collided most of the years that I lived with her. I was born in '87, and '92 I experienced my first foster care family because my mom couldn't take care of us. So we ended up moving in with my Uncle Kevin, who I could say was there for me, but when it came to needing somewhere to go for the holidays and stuff like that, he wasn't. So I kind of like I'm being a man about it now and trying to forgive and forget, kind of, but it's hard.
So you didn't have anybody around the holidays. Like, what happened to the point where you ended up? Well, I don't have anywhere to stay on the holidays. How did you get to that point in life, and how old were
Well,
you?
my first really experience of really in foster care was when my grandmother had a heart attack. It was a fight between my grandmother and my mother over the custody of me and my other brothers. So my mom told me to really skip court, and I did. I listened to her. I listened to everything she said. So I skipped court, but I ended up at my grandmother's house later that night. Next morning I woke up. There's a police standing in front of me, and I'm bawling my eyes out. They're telling me I have to go to some place called South Mountain, Cornell Braxis.
Hmm.
And that day, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I thought my mom would never lead me in the wrong direction.
Hmm.
So I kind of rode with her. Whatever she said, I did.
Right.
You know what I mean? I
And
was picked on as. Hello.
how
Say
old
that,
were you
say
at
that again.
I'm sorry. How old were you at that point?
I was around 12.
Well, so of course, as at that age, you trust your mom naturally. Most kids
Yes.
do. So okay.
Yes.
So
So
I mean, go on. You're saying you followed your mom and you trusted everything to be okay.
Yep. And that morning they hauled me off, and no questions asked. They took me to Cornell Braxis, and that pretty much changed how I looked at everything.
What was
Um,
what was day one like? Like, what was that experience like as you're getting there, as you're being in processed? What was that?
I was restrained for 7 hours. They
In
were allowed.
handcuffs
They
or?
were allowed. Oh no, they were allowed to go hands on
Hmm.
and right to the ground. I went.
Wow. For Did you do anything to warrant that treatment or what?
I told them. I told them that I wasn't gonna stay here.
And they just
I cried and I begged and I told them like I listened. I listened to my mom. This is what she told me to do. Why am I being punished for it?
hmm and what was their immediate response?
You're not going anywhere. You're here to stay.
And they held you down for 7 hours
They
or?
held me down for 7 hours.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And that was day one.
That was day one.
So then what
Day
was
two was a lot better.
okay?
Day two, I kind of rolled with the punches because I figured I'm not going anywhere.
Hmm.
So I figured that maybe if I act good for this one day, they might let me go. They might let me walk out those front doors.
Hmm.
That one day turned into a month, and I never got a letter from my mother.
Wow.
This whole time, I'm in this boot camp / detention center / mental health hospital. I'm thinking I'm going home, and every day I prayed that she would pop up out of nowhere and take me home with her. You know what I mean? Holidays roll by, but after Cornell Braxis, I went to Truxville Wilderness Camp.
Hmm.
It was pretty much
Was that another detention center?
no, it's a wilderness camp. It's pretty much like if you do good there, you follow the rules and you if you do these tasks and you complete them, they will let you go home. Pretty much, it was like it was like a last program.
Hmm.
So it was pretty much like you hike every 12 miles a day. There's 31 days out in the wilderness. And that's what changed a lot about me. Because I stopped caring or what everybody else thought, and I started wanting stuff for myself.
Hmm.
And that's when I became very, very selfish. I
How
figured
so?
that I figured that nobody else was going to help me. I was left out there to dry, and I gotta survive on my own.
Hmm.
So I didn't care about anybody. I didn't care about if I hurt anyone. So I started to steal at that wilderness camp. I began to steal there. Um, I end up completing that wilderness camp and end up returning home, which kind of it didn't go so good. I would skip out on school. I would get in a lot of fights. I'd be in the streets. Every day I would watch another man beat my mother and couldn't do anything about it
Hmm.
because he was bigger than me.
And were you 13 at this point?
Yes,
Okay.
13, and my younger brothers, they couldn't do anything. There
And
was times where, go ahead.
I just want to interject real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt the flow, but what happened that caused you to have to go to court? What was the initial incident that started this path for you?
My mother did not want to give up custody to my grandmother,
Hmm.
and that's why we were going to court. My grandmother was going to get custody, and my mom was going to have to pay child support. She didn't want anything to do with that. So she told us that she loves us and she has a house and there's no more going house to house. Our grandmother doesn't love us. She only wants the money. So I listened to her.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I picked up my brothers and I told them, let's go. You know what I mean?
So you got picked up as a runaway then?
No, because I returned to my grandmother's house later that night.
But is that what the charges were for against you? That put you in the
Yes,
center, runaway?
yes.
Wow. And before that, you were just like an average, good kid in school, and
I mean, I wasn't a good kid. You know what I mean? I had my times
Mhm.
where I acted out and didn't want to be at school
But that's
and
every
everything
kid.
like that.
You know,
Yeah,
sometimes-
yeah, you know what I mean?
and so it was the wilderness camp where you finally decided, forget this. Nobody cares about me. I mean, your own mother abandoned you.
Yep.
I can't blame you for feeling that way. So again, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow, but so now you're 13 years old. You make it through wilderness camp, and now you're kind of starting to get streetwise and just looking out for you.
Yep.
So what was that like once you came home and you're back in school?
I came home, and then right as I came home, I went right into another foster care family with my brother Dwayne,
Hmm.
and because once the once they have you, you know what I mean, you're there until you're age 18,
Hmm.
and pretty much the foster care family had one child, and they looked after him no matter what. And I can understand that now, but as a kid, I didn't understand that. So I was very, very rebellion against this family. And the more I think about it now is that I got in so much trouble with the schools and stuff like that because I was fighting again
Hmm.
even more, but I was also taking things. If I didn't have things, I took it.
Hmm.
If the guy in the cafeteria had some nice shoes on, I took those by the end of the day.
Hmm. By force or like
By force or how, if he's going to give them up, he's going to give them up.
Mhm.
If he didn't, then I would take them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I became very, very violent.
Why? Like, what were you feeling when you were doing that?
I mean, honestly, I wasn't feeling anything.
Hmm.
I kind of lost like the care for the world. I figured that I was just on my own.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? My mom wasn't there, and my grandmother. I wasn't. we weren't allowed to go see my grandmother as she was dying, because the foster care family used that as every time we went to go see my grandmother, we would act out.
Mhm.
So from there, I ended up getting kicked out of that family's house, and that's when I ended up in Troy. It's a it's like pretty much like a shelter for kids until they're placed somewhere.
Mhm. And was that a nice place? Was it?
It was a very nice place. It
That's.
was a very nice place. Nice gym,
Mhm.
everything. That was the main thing I loved about it. That kept my mind off of not having freedom and not being around your boys and everything else. That gym,
Mhm.
I went in there and played ball as much as I could.
Right.
You know what I mean? When I had that basketball in my hand, I didn't, nothing was going on. Just me and the ball.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
So
And
that was
from,
kind of your therapy then.
yes,
And how old were you at that point when you were in that shelter?
I was around like 14, going on almost 15.
Still just a kid.
Yep, yep.
Well,
And
that's the
then,
thing.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just gonna say when you were asking him what he was thinking, like from what I understand of childhood development, children start to be able to think the way we as adults think in terms of like
mhm,
their connection to the larger world and consequential behavior, like and like morality is sometimes connected to that. They start being able to do that like effectively around 14 or 15. So
mhm,
his ability, like that, was interrupted. So it makes sense that you, Kevin, wouldn't be able to like reflect back and be like, what were you thinking? You weren't because that ability to develop those skills and those thought, it was interrupted by trauma.
yes,
Mhm.
yes.
So go on. I'm sorry. I just wanted to offer that.
No, feel free.
Before you pick back up, Kevin, to our listeners out there, if you're listening through YouTube or through through the Google page, and you want to comment or ask Kevin a question, we're going to allot some time for that towards the end of our time with Kevin. Just make sure you're on the actual YouTube page. If you're watching through the Service of Change page, just to the bottom right of the actual window where the show is broadcasting, just click the YouTube link, and then you can just type your questions right in there. And same on Google, just type your questions right into the box there, and it should show up on our screen. If not, my deepest apologies. This is a new feature for us, but you do have that opportunity if you want to interact or say anything, and we'll definitely try to get to them tonight. So, all right, Kevin, back to you're at your second or your third placement now, including the wilderness
Yep,
camps. This is placement number
yep.
3.
My third placement. It was
Mhm.
Troy, and it was a great place. The workers there were great people, and they actually really did care.
Mhm.
Mm.
But at that point and everything, I didn't care.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
And that's what we see in so many of not in our situation today, Kevin, but I know in our experience and the students we've worked with, we do encounter that young man who does not care, and that's a tough mindset to break, isn't it?
hmm Yes, it is.
Well, not caring is how you cope. I went through that as a younger person too. It was later in my adolescence, but that's your defense. I don't give an F. I remember that would go through my head so many times. Like I
Mhm.
don't give an F. I don't give an F. Like
Mhm.
that was my
hmm
protection against feeling like any sort of remorse or guilt or the fear that I actually was really feeling deep down. It was
Nobody can hurt you if you don't care.
exactly.
hmm
Right.
Yep, yep.
All right, continue, Kevin.
And then from Troy, that great experience, I went to this place in Abbottstown, Pennsylvania, near Gettysburg. It's called Paradise School for Boys.
Mhm.
I was there for about a year. Um, that was a residential for boys, pretty much. It wasn't fun. You know what I mean? Being around guys all every day and not being able to leave. It was in the middle of nowhere, and that kind of had to make me. It made me well, it introduced me to the wilderness, as you could say, because a lot of the things that we did there were it was okay, but I wasn't a wilderness type of guy. I was more of a city boy.
Right.
You know
Is
what I
that
mean?
why you? I
So
mean, because you told me about a week ago that you hate being out in the woods and the wilderness. Is
I,
this?
I hate it. I hate it. That's exactly where it comes from.
Wow. I didn't make
It's
that connection.
just it's just something that like I will never forget, and it just throws me back to those days when I was there.
Hmm.
You know what I
I,
mean? I was,
yeah. No,
and
I understand, man. Like when I go into Philly, I get that anxiety because I had to be on point, on guard when I was in the city, for multiple reasons. So yeah, when I think about going to the city, my anxiety goes up. So I can
Mhm.
definitely relate to that. I understand. So you were there in this place up in Abbott, PA for about a year, you said?
For about a year, yeah. And
Okay.
so I got kicked out of there. I end up hitting the kid so hard I knocked him out and fractured the side of his skull.
Hmm.
It was kind of like I took my anger out on
On
the.
him.
It was totally my fault and I was wrong. Until this day, you know what I mean, I feel for this kid and I kind of like took all the anger out on him.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's just it was wrong, and that was one of my biggest mistakes that I made.
Hmm.
Well,
So I
hurt
ended up getting.
people hurt people.
Hmm.
That's something I heard before. When you're hurt, you tend to hurt other people. Doesn't make it right, but there's usually a reason for it.
Hmm.
But go on. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. But I ended up getting kicked out of there. I walked out of there in cuffs, and I ended up going to back to York and back to Troy, where I seen a lot of my old friends and stuff like that.
Who were
Well,
locked up?
not friends, but
Acquaintances.
yeah, yeah. And I ended up going to YDC. It's called York Detention Center. And actually, my cousin was going there at the time too.
Mhm.
So it was kind of like a family reunion,
Not the good kind.
and not the good kind, not at all, not at all. And the things I used to do with that kid is just ridiculous. And
Hmm. Like while you guys
from
were in the center.
YDC outside of the center,
Hmm. Like what kind of stuff
you
were you
know what I
getting
mean?
involved in on the streets?
Kind of stuff I started as a runner,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? And then started holding things for certain people,
Hmm.
and I was getting in fights. Like I said, I was taking things that weren't mine. I
Hmm.
was stealing bikes. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I was doing everything wasn't supposed to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
And
did you feel good
but
about it? Like, did you feel like you had that sense of belonging at least with,
I felt like I had control.
hmm.
You know what I mean? Nobody else could control me. I had control.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't have somebody sitting there beating down my neck telling me I was doing this, I was doing that. You know what I mean?
I
And that,
just keep thinking of how this all started. Had nothing to do with any of the stuff that you ended up doing,
yep,
all because of a custody issue.
yep,
And you were just
that,
trying to be with your mom, really.
yep. And from the detention center, I went to a place called Darren Shelter that's near Camp Hill.
Hmm.
It was a very nice shelter, just as much as Troy. Like they would take you. I went out to my first movie theater in years, and I seen the Hulk.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't understand why I watched this movie so many times and why I have it in VHS and DVD still. Like it's because it means a lot.
It's your first taste of freedom.
That was my first taste.
Hmm.
That was 2004, right? 2004.
Hmm. That was like my first taste. I was in Darren Shelter. No, I think it was like 2003.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, 2003. 2003. That's what it was. And then from there, I ended up going to a foster care family that all the way in Catasauqua, Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
around our lovely town of Allentown. That that town and those people in it changed my life completely.
How old were you at this point? Were you 15, 16 years
I
old?
was I was actually going into my freshman year, so I
Hmm.
was a year older than when I was supposed to be because of being held back
Right.
in the detention centers and not being in the public school
Hmm.
for
You
so
were around
long.
16 then, right? In
Yes. Yep.
2003, yeah, because you were born in '87.
Yep.
So you had a family that cared for you. Tell us about the family that kind of
Um,
changed things for you.
it, I would say my first day in the high school, I got in a fight.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It was rough my first day because I felt like I still had to protect myself
Right,
and
you got to
protect
establish yourself.
others. Yeah, yeah. And at this school, I didn't have to. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Right away, I started trying to hang out with the crowd I usually hang out with, but then I started playing basketball more.
Hmm.
So I started meeting people off the team and stuff like that. But the foster care family had a lot to do with it. It was more of my coaches, my guidance counselors, my teachers at Caddy High. They stuck with me and they got me into sports and they kept my grades up, and they are the reason why I am like who I am today. You
The
know what I mean?
family and the teachers.
And they're not even the same skin color as me. You know what I mean? Growing up, it was always a white and black thing. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I didn't have a lot of white friends growing up.
Right.
I had two really good Caucasian friends, and just got reacquainted with him from York. His name's Richard Good, and that was my best friend.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? That was the little good that I had living in the hood.
Right. The one
You know
friend.
what I mean? That one friend. And then
Sometimes that's
coming
all
up
you need.
here, yeah. And then coming up here to all white school, it changed my life. They opened my eyes and they took me in. They didn't have to at all. They didn't have to do the things that they did. You know what I mean? And I thank them to this day. Eric Snyder, my coach for basketball, was that's one of my role models.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I love coaching because of him. Love the game because of him. He showed me in and out how to be a man.
And what is a man to you, Kevin?
A man. See, it's it's that's a hard question.
It
You know what I
is.
mean? But I figure that if the past that I went through and knowing the wrong that I was doing to others, family, friends, people I didn't know, and for them to open my eyes and see that I had to make changes and just trying to handle responsibilities. I'm still growing to be a man. You know what I mean? I still feel that I'm not finished. I'm not complete yet.
Hmm.
There's stuff that I still want to achieve and make myself better. You know what
And
I
that's
mean?
a
And I
good
tell these.
quality. I mean, we're always growing.
Hmm.
You know,
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought, and then I just wanted to segue. But go ahead.
well, being a man is knowing that you're not a man and you still have a lot to work on.
That's
You know what I
awesome,
mean?
awesome,
I
awesome answer.
just
Hmm.
that's how I feel as being a man. I know I have a lot to work on still, and I tell these kids that every single day.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm not perfect. I make mistakes.
And
You
that's
know what I mean?
you
It's
know,
just.
and that's a sign, in my opinion, as well as what a real man is being able to fess up and say, I don't know that, or I can make a mistake, and I'm confident enough in my status as a man that that's not going to bruise my ego to admit I'm not the best at that. You know, and that's so difficult for some
Mhm,
of the young men that we work with, you know, to grasp that at this point.
mhm,
You know,
Well,
which
sometimes you got to be around people that aren't going to take
mhm.
that confession as a sign of weakness.
is a sign of weakness, which is tough,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is
especially when
tough.
you're a 15-year-old young boy. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
it's real tough. You know, which is a perfect segue, I guess, because you know, now, Kevin, you do amazing things with you know, with students and struggling students and students that really just have behavioral challenges, and you look at that student, and I don't think you're ever one that looks at a kid and says, "Oh, that's a problem student." You look more and says, that student needs something. You know, that student, there's so much
Mhm,
potential, and I want to help bring that potential out. And that's how I see you interact with our students. You know, as opposed to, you know, you recognize when that kid acts out, they're telling me they need something. They
mhm,
just don't know how to express I need something. you know, and you find ways to
Hmm.
pull it out. So how did you end up, you know, in education specific function right now? Actually, what are you doing now? And I mean, I know obviously, but for our listeners, what are you doing now? And you know, how'd you get into that?
Well, right now I work two jobs. I'm a personal aide, so I look over a certain student and I help him out with his reading, his writing, his schoolwork, and I also look over other kids while I'm at the center too. Um, and I also am a school age teacher at in a daycare, and I love both jobs to the fullest. Like I don't see them as jobs. Um, working at the center, it opened my eyes. You know what I mean? It brought in some of these kids I see myself, and that's how I approach them. Because I knew if somebody would ask me what was wrong and let me get things off of my chest, maybe I wouldn't have flipped out that later on during that day. You know what I mean? Maybe I wouldn't have took that kid's shoes. You know what I mean? It's always that maybe. So that's why I like to talk to the kids and get that personal relationship with them and let them know that, listen, I was doing the same thing you were doing. I'm not perfect.
And kids and just people in general, they need a personal touch. Like listening to your
Hmm.
story, like what I thought of was that when agencies get involved and you start getting institutionalized, you might have some good people who work at these various institutions, but
Hmm.
it's hard to have that ongoing relationship with them, especially if you're getting shuttled from place to place to place.
Hmm.
And to actually build that trust and have like an ongoing relationship with people, that's so necessary. Like there's a bureaucracy sometimes that kids get lost in or
You know, it's the
troubled, and,
system.
and adults too. Yeah, they get lost in the
Hmm.
system, and like my girlfriend's sister works for New Jersey, like another state. Well, I just said it, New Jersey, uh, where they deal with this sort of thing. And from what I heard, but it doesn't always happen, is that they try to make their first priority or first direction for when they place a kid is to try to place them with another family member. Because
Hmm.
they know that if they go into foster care or they go into these detention centers, that it's not that it's better to be with somebody who you know who, well, I mean, most of the time, not all the time, but
Hmm.
because the system is starting to know, but sometimes there's no great choices. It's like the lesser of two evils. So for you to be one of those people who are there to build some of those like personal relationships with some of those kids is going to make a difference. So I applaud you for that.
Yeah, I
And,
always say
and
that. Go ahead, Kevin, please.
I want to thank you too, Mr. Nappy. Like you, what you're doing there is great. It's not just me. You know what I mean? We're a team there, and we all sit down and we got good communication skills between each other. You know what I mean? And we know how to approach certain students.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We know our students. We got to know our students personally. You know what I mean? They're not students to us. You know what I mean? Like we always tell those kids, like, you can always come to us. We're family.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
And
mean?
Exactly.
that goes such a long way, you know, and to our entire staff there, to to Isela, who is, you know, running the show, and Suli and Miriam, you know, we have a great crew there, and everybody, regardless of what your job is, we all do everybody else's job and then some, and it's
Mm-hmm.
about the kids, and we recognize too, like if someone's dealing with a kid or we're dealing with a kid and, you know, we might not have the best connection, we have no problem backing off regardless of what's
Mm-hmm.
said to us. If somebody else can be better fit, you know, we have that good play, and it's all because we care about our students. Because if we can be that one voice, that one consistent voice, even if it's only for a day, a week, a month, a year, you know,
Yep.
hopefully that's enough for that student to make it through that hardship and then be the success story that you've become.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always plant seeds with people. Like that's what I've learned through years of dealing with people, like just humans in general, but people that have had trouble pasts or are in trouble now. that sometimes the things you say to them, they might still go and they might still stay in that lifestyle or stay in the behavioral patterns that they're in. But sometimes, I know that happened to me, like some people came to me while I was in trouble and they planted seeds with me. And then I remember I reached out to one of those people when it got too bad. I was like, at first I was like, stay away from me with that like happy stuff. I don't want to hear any of that. You know what I mean? Like, but then later I was like, help me.
Yep.
You can't always judge the results by the immediate results, is my point.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the plight of a teacher. We always hope to hear, those immediate results, but we know we're not going to. It could be 10 years, know, and that's what I always hope that, one day that student's going to go, Mr. Nappy was right, or, in some cases I always hope that someday that student will decide not to pull that trigger.
Exactly.
That I've worked with.
Uh-huh. Yep, and growing up, that was my biggest thing. I never asked for help. You know what I mean? I thought that you were weak if you asked for help.
Yeah, you got to be taught to. You got to be taught to do it, and then you got to be taught how to do it. It's not necessarily. It doesn't come naturally. Like, you got to be around people that aren't going to reject you when you go ask for help.
Yep.
And I want to stress, in case any of our students happen to wander, to this ChangeCast and listen to it, how important it is to be able to ask for help, and that we're there, and any student that may be listening to this, anybody around that age that's listening to this, find that teacher who cares and is going to listen to you, and even if they give you advice that you don't like at that moment, we're there because we care and we want what's best for you, even if you don't like the route that we take. We're there to support you. And
that's just good advice for human beings in general, because nobody, like, everybody has like things that they're good at, but everybody has things they're not so good at. So like Kevin was saying, like, his definition of being a man is knowing he's not yet a man, that he has things to work on. It's the same thing with everybody who's still on this planet. You could be 75 years old. You still don't have it all figured out. There's still some things you could do better. There's some things you could learn from other people to help other people and to help yourself.
Yes.
Kevin, let me ask you, what is your favorite thing about doing what you do right now?
Seeing them smile. I mean, I get a joy. I don't call this a job to me. You know what I mean? I had jobs. I mean, doing garbage and landscaping and working the fast food, that's a job to me. You know what I mean? What I get out of it is seeing them smile. You know what I mean? When they're happy and they're being a kid. You know what I mean? My childhood, I felt, was taken from me because of the mistakes I made.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And them living their life and having a joy, cutting up and everything else. That's what I like to see. Not all that fussing and fighting and who's the baddest wolf in the classroom and everything else.
Right, and the truth is, you and I have talked about this a lot. Usually the one that comes in talking, we know. We know you're not as bad as you. It's the one that sits there quietly. That's the one I'm worried about. Worried from a place of concern. But the one that comes in running his mouth, somebody's going to teach you a lesson one of these days, because they know if you're really from the street, that person running his mouth, they ain't going.
Yeah, the real ones move in silence.
Exactly.
Yep, exactly.
They move in silence.
They definitely do.
Not that that's necessarily a good thing, but I'm saying that
it's not.
No,
it's not a good thing. But yeah, you can differentiate the people that are just using that bluster as like a defense mechanism.
I was telling Kevin the difference between my students that would talk a big game in some of the more suburban areas I worked in, and some of my students in Philly is in the suburbs. They'd be like, "I'm gonna hit you, dog. I'm gonna steal you in your mouth." And I was like, "Dude, in Philly, they just got up and swung, man. Like, it was on.
You're not gonna warn them.
They picked up a chair and threw it at me.
You do that. I feel like I'm glorifying it. But I'm just
no, but I mean, you have to laugh once you've been through it. You have to be able to laugh.
Exactly.
That arch. It's better to laugh than cry sometimes.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
Yep. Definitely.
So when a kid's talking, cool, you can talk. I'm not worried now.
Yep, exactly. But like, and that's what I tell the kids. I tell them that listen, sometimes the closest ones will hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you just gotta keep it moving. You know what I mean? Take those licks, because the more you keep worrying about the people that are not in your circle worrying about you, you're gonna be worried every single day,
Hmm. So,
every single day.
so what would to that student out there that's really in the struggle right now, Kevin? What what do you want to say to him or her? What advice do you have for them as they're going through that, as they're maybe in and out of foster care or whatever it is that they're dealing with? What advice do you have for them?
It gets better. It all depends on how much. You know what I mean? If you're gonna sit there and think the world owes you this and owes you that, you know what I mean, you're not gonna make it. You gotta want better. You could dream it, you could say you want it, you gotta go out and do it. You know what I mean? Just sitting there talking about I'm gonna be the rapper of the year, I'm gonna do this and do that. You know what I mean? All that's all talk. But the day you hit 18 and you become a man or a woman and responsibilities pile on, it gets tough. You know what I mean? So it gets better. You control your own path. You got the direction that you're gonna be headed. Nobody else.
It's like Joel and I always say, be the change. Be the change you want to be.
Hmm.
You know,
And it can start today, and it can start small.
Hmm.
Because it can seem overwhelming, but if you just break it down into like doable parts, well, today I'm gonna do it. Yeah, like if you want to be a rapper, go write. Like work
Yeah,
on your writing. Go practice. Like
stop putting it off.
Be the best
yeah,
at it.
set aside time every day to do that, and you can master your craft. Those are the people that anybody who's this is just a good example. Like anybody who's a famous rapper, if you ask them, it took years for them to get on. They've been doing it every
Yep.
day. Except for the people that are enormously naturally gifted, but they're few and far between.
Right, they are.
Yep.
And I hate them. No, I'm
Yep.
just kidding. But I tell my students all the time, like I wanted to write a book. It was a life goal of mine, and I wrote it
Mhm.
one word at a time. That turned into one page, one chapter, and it took me 5.5 years. But it was just one word at a time. And I sat down one day. I said, "Today's the day I'm starting my book," and I never stopped. And now look what it's turned into. We've got this weekly radio show where we're interviewing some incredible people, yourself included. We've got this awesome website where we're starting to get an interest in people wanting to share stories and write for us. And I mean, it's actually growing. I've put out 3 books from starting to write that one word. So I'm going to piggyback on what you said, Kevin, and just do it. Just start now. You're gonna make mistakes. That's part of the process. I failed a couple times on this show alone, but hey, we learn from it and we grow and make it better. So another question, because we're coming up close to the end of our show. We're gonna skip we're just using the whole time with you, Kevin, because we're having such a great conversation. But to the parent or to the teacher that has that that challenging student, they have that Kevin Carter that walks in that wants to get in a fight on his first day. What advice do you have for them out there, for those teachers that maybe have a difficult student?
Mean what you say. If you care. Follow through. You know what I mean? That one day you sit there and you say, "Oh, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better." Get to know that student. Know what's going on with them. When they walk through the door, being their normal self. You know what I mean? The following day they might not, and it's up to you if you're gonna know what's wrong with them. And you're gonna ask. You know what I mean? Some of those kids will open up to you. Some of them won't.
Mm-hmm.
But trying, you know what I mean, and really showing that you really do care. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you're not getting love at home. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes a kid is messing up because he or she wants that love, but they don't want to tell you that.
Yeah, they don't know how.
You know what I mean? That I didn't want to.
And that takes. I think everything went silent. I don't know if you guys are still with me or not.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna plow on. But and sometimes that you may fail with that kid 5, 6, 7 times because they don't trust that you're going to still be there for them.
Yep.
So after sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a month, and then finally one day that kid will come in and tell you some amazingly heartbreaking story.
Yep.
And then what goes through my head when I had that breakthrough is, now I can't give up. Like I've connected with this kid and he's trusting me, and that to me is one of the most powerful things and rewards, but most awesome responsibilities you can have as a teacher.
Yes.
But do you notice that what Kevin was saying to like the advice to the kids is very similar to the advice to the teachers in the sense that both of them control their destiny, they control what they do, and they both are going to get better with consistency every day. Like he said, mean what you say. Like just don't say it. Like follow through with action.
Gotta follow through with it, and kids know. You know, and let me just interject for a minute to our viewers out there, because I see people popping in and out, which is fantastic. Thank you so much. We do have a chat form available. You know, if you're watching through YouTube or through Google Hangouts, you know, if you're on the YouTube link, just make sure you're on the actual YouTube page, and in your comments section, you can type any questions, any comments that you have, and we'll read them out to Kevin on the air. We've got 5-10 minutes left in our show, so just so you know that that's a feature. If you wanted to reach out and to comment to Kevin, so, but
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yes, and I love where this show is going, and I'm hoping that those viewers that we have come back and listen to us. Like I said, earlier in the show, there's a lot of ways that you can connect with us at Service of Change. We have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Service of Change. You can reach out to me on Twitter. That's Dennis Nappy II, Nappii. And I highly recommend subscribing to our newsletter, because that's really the best way that you can stay connected with us. And of course, you can get the Service of Change app at serviceofchange.com. Just click the banner at the top. Once that opens up on your mobile device, just simply save that to your home screen, and you have everything you need, right there, in the palm of your hand. So a lot of good ways that we can connect with all of you out there, and we're really just, Joel and I are just trying to grow this and hope to inspire people to give them that one idea of, number one, you can do anything you want, and you can make that difference in the world. And it's all about spreading that positivity. So that's what we hope to do. So please check out our resources that we're continuing to build here.
So Kevin, what are your goals for the future?
My goals for the future, become a better man.
There you go.
I mean? Change whatever I can, and it starts, like you said, today. I mean? I have to really change. Before I can tell a kid that he or she is wrong, because I was doing the same thing they were doing. And when I tell these kids, like I told one of my students that today that I would love to be your father if I was old enough, but I would love to be your father. Because just because you're out there making mistakes, don't make you a bad kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I said that as a cop, Kevin. That was always my in with people. When I'd have to lock them up, they'd be like, "Oh, you must think I'm a really bad person, officer." I said, "You're not a bad person. You said a bad thing. Maybe you had a bad day. Maybe you're feeling hard times." And sort of again, to the person out there listening to this, thinking that, "Oh, I'm a bad person because I've done X, Y, and Z." No, maybe you just made a bad choice or a bunch of bad choices. But I think you're a living example of it's never too late to turn it around. Never too late. To make something and to feel good about yourself and about life, because you should be able to enjoy life. You shouldn't have to go through all that pain.
And guilt is good only to the extent that it's a sign that it's our conscious often telling us that this is wrong, and it's sometimes a sign that we got to make the change. But it shouldn't be like a trap to think that we're defeated. That's when guilt becomes unproductive and becomes like an obstacle. So I look at a lot of these motions as it's like an alarm. Like it's just telling me something. It's feedback. So, but it's hard though, because those feelings can be very powerful, and if we don't know how to do them and we don't have anyone to talk to about them, then it can be tough.
Yep.
Great point. Great point. Well, we're coming up on the end of our show. Like I said, we went over with our time with Kevin just because I think he has such an incredible story and some great advice. So, Kevin, I'm going to leave it up to you if you have any last comments, last final thoughts, or anything you want to say to our listeners out there.
Hey, I want to tell you guys, hey, it's a great thing that you guys are doing here. Keep going, keep doing it. You know what I mean? Somebody's always going to listen, and I'm gonna be listening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I want to thank you guys for letting me share my story. And Mr. Nappy, you're the man.
Thanks, brother.
I'll tell you that, and I mean that.
I know you do. I know it comes from the heart. I appreciate it.
It definitely does. It definitely does.
Appreciate
I
it.
mean, and like they said, you know, what I mean, when we start here, we can change the world.
Hmm.
You know what I mean, and I really think we can. So,
I think that's why we got into education, Kevin, because we
mhm.
see that as the future, you know, and hopefully we're making that impact. I believe that we are.
Yeah, I know we.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, Kevin, thank you so much for for taking the time and to share your story. I know it's not easy, but you did an awesome job and told some really personal stuff. So, again, for that, I don't know why I keep thinking of Tupac, who's saying, when I talk about a thug and people being out there, it's not for the all the kids that never been through it. It's for that one kid that's in the struggle.
Yep.
And you're kind of bringing that message right now.
Hmm.
You're telling your story for that kid who's going through it right now, so they know they are not alone. You've been through it and you've succeeded, and look what you got now. So again, thank you for having the courage to share that personal
Thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
our pleasure. Joel, I want to pass it off to you. Any final thoughts before I wrap up the show?
I'm just honored to have heard your story, Kevin, and it inspired me. I got the chills several times, and so thank you, man. Thank you for what you're doing to help, because we all got to live together. So
Yes, we do.
that kid you help, you know, that might be somebody that is my daughter's friend. You know what I mean? Or somebody that'll come in contact with my daughter someday. You know what I mean? Like, we all got to live together. So you're making a better world, one kid at a time for me and for the people I love. So thank you.
And I want to thank you too. And hopefully I will meet you.
Yeah,
You know what I
man.
mean? Definitely. So
Yeah.
we can, me and you and Mr. Knapp can get together.
I invite you guys up here, but Kevin's afraid of the woods, so
Woo!
You got a basketball net, tennis?
I don't.
Oh,
My
okay.
son has one. I have one of those little Fisher Price
I got a
basketball
little one.
nets, But
Hey,
yeah,
I
obviously,
dunk on him too. I dunk on him too.
gonna dunk on my 2-year-old son. All right.
It's all up.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. Well, honestly, there is an open invite to you guys if you ever want to come up this way, and I sincerely.
Definitely.
But we're out of time. So again, I'd like to say thank you to Kevin for being our guest, and thank you to Joel as always for being my partner in crime, the provocateur. And so we're gonna go ahead and wrap up our show. And as we say, you can find us on Facebook.com/Service of Change. Follow me on Twitter, Dennis Nappy II. That's Nappii. I'd also like you to try to download our app at serviceofchange.com. Click the link and just save it to your home screen. And also, please check out my books. If you're a teacher, the Urban Educator Survival Guide sells for 99 cents on Kindle. And also, Service of Soldier's Journey, Counterintelligence, Law Enforcement, and the Violence of Urban Education is available on Amazon. I'll be having a special next week. Check back at our Thanksgiving special on Wednesday, how you can get a discount. And it's a great gift for a teacher, a cop, a soldier, or somebody who loves someone in those professions. To just telling my journey and my story to give a little bit more insight on some of the challenges that go on. So again, please continue to support the show. To our viewers out there, thank you so much for sticking with us. It means the world to us. That is why we do this show. We just really appreciate it. So remember that small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. Be that change. Thank you.